Wolfswood is the first map that you will interact with when you jump into Vaultbreakers, and Beta Dwarf did a great job of making this map very beginner friendly. One of the key parts of this map is that a huge majority of the enemies that you will interact with are low-level basic mobs. There are a few elite mobs that are spread out across the map, as well as one boss mob that is in the basic map. But in order to actually take on bosses in the Wolfswood map, you must have a Rune of Breaking or a Searing Flask to enter into these regions, and sometimes both. Let's jump into each of these special regions that you can go into in the Wolfswood map and see exactly which bosses you will encounter when you go into those regions. To start off, Boomhook the Catcher is the main boss that you will interact with out in the open world in Wolfswood. You will find him just to the southeast of Venomweb Hollow, and you'll know you're in the right area when you see a lot of proximity mines and other little Scrat guys running around trying to kill you. In addition to Boomhook, there is a named elite that's pretty popular to kill, and he patrols the bandit outpost, Alaric the Trapper. And he patrols this region. He's a good kill. He is just an elite though, not a boss. Another named elite that you will run across is the Spider Broodmother. She can be found in Venomweb Hollow, and she drops a good amount of loot. Jumping into the first region, which is probably the most popular that most people will interact with first, is Pinecrest Village and Pinecrest Keep. You're actually tasked with going into this region very early into your gameplay. Once you enter into the region, very quickly into the gate, there's a good chance you will interact with the Werewolf Elder. This roaming boss circles around the Pinecrest Village area, and if you follow him to the right, you'll actually interact with the second boss in Pinecrest Village called Lunara Darkfang. The Elder will follow the basic pattern of a werewolf as how he attacks, and Lunara Darkfang will follow the basic attack patterns of a Vine Weaver. If you continue in further and make your way into the graveyard on the west side of Pinecrest Village, you'll interact with a good amount of werewolves in the graveyard, and working your way into the north, you will encounter the first Soul Devourer on this map. The next locked region, which is directly to the west of Pinecrest Village, is Grizzly Hollow. In Grizzly Hollow, you will encounter a lot of bears, but you will not encounter a boss. This region is home to Buto the Wanderer, a named elite. Moving further to the west, we run into the Elven Ruins. The Elven Ruins will be human enemies, and in the northern area, you will encounter an alpha wolf with the Bandit King. Continuing in a clockwise fashion around the map, we now come to Darkmoon Thicket and the Werewood Keep. Darkmoon Thicket on the north side has one boss further into the west side of the map named the Werewolf Elder. This boss is another roaming boss like the previous Werewolf Elder, and he roams around this western side of the northern side of the map. If you make your way into Werewood Keep, you will encounter the primary boss of this region, Bara the Witch Wolf. This is a pretty difficult fight, and note that werewolf elders will join in to help. The next area is Galeheart Hollow. Galeheart Hollow will have mostly elementals, but at the very end of this region, you will encounter our second Soul Devourer. The next region is Elemental Cave and Windshear Crag. This is the first of two regions that will require not only a Rune of Breaking, but also a Searing Flask in order to get all the way through the area. Start with the Rune of Breaking to get into the Elemental Cave, and then use the Searing Flask to get into the Windshear Crag. There are no bosses in the Elemental Cave, but once you are in Windshear Crag, we will come across the third and final Soul Devourer. Be aware that inside of Windshear Crag is the same environment as the roaming storm that circles around the map, so it might be a good idea to load up with a lodestone before you go into this region. The last area is the Scrat Invasion in the Airship. This region, like the Elemental Cave and Windshear Crag, requires you to use a Rune of Breaking to get into the Scrat Invasion and a Searing Flask in order to get into the Airship. Inside the Scrat Invasion, you will just find normal mobs. But once you break into the airship, you will come across Flameclaw Mech, and he is the boss of this region. And that's all I have for you. Those are the bosses that are currently in Vaultbreakers for the Wolfswood map. I don't believe I've missed any, but if you feel that I did, please leave them down below in the comments. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next one.